Hello and welcome to Films Talk, the special Sofia International Film Festival broadcast bringing artists and film authors to your homes, because probably you're not allowed to get to theirs. It's a special year this year. You cannot see live that many people, and for the simple reason of keeping everybody alive and in good health. But the Sofia Film Festival went online. It went online in all directions, and now the whole world is at your home. So I guess this is kind of cool. Today we are speaking to Eva Kool's, director of the film КЛЕО. Hello, Eva. How are you?
Hello, good morning. Hi, I'm doing very good. I'm at home in my working office, but still alive, so it's okay.
You have a very tidy working office. Usually people think that artists have their really messy surroundings, full of coffee stains and empty wine bottles. But I see that you kind of tidied up your films behind you.
Yes, it's a good motivation actually to be surrounded by my movies, and I try to make my working space as functional but also as nice as possible, so I can write in a good atmosphere. It works for me when it is a little bit more tidy actually.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's interesting because looking at your filmography, you wrote most of your films yourself. You even produced most of your films yourself. How does that work? How do you play the woman orchestra?
Yes, I wrote and directed and often did the casting of all my films. Producing, I didn't for КЛЕО because it's a feature movie that was way too difficult for me. And my last short film, Las Meninas, was also produced by another producer. But it's true that on the creative aspect, I like to be involved with all the parts, because most of my work is kind of personal related, so I like to be in charge of the creative aspects of the different stages of the movie.
So you draw inspiration mostly from yourself and your personal experience?
No, not always my personal experience, but sometimes the experience I had through my family or people I met. So it's not that it's about me, but mostly topics that interest me with people I met, and then I investigated. But yeah, for example, with КЛЕО, it's also personally inspired by an event that happened to my family, and then I fictionalized it. So it's always kind of related to things that are in my surroundings. Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about КЛЕО. What is it about, and how do you project its story not only on a personal but also on a social level?
Yes. So КЛЕО is a movie about a 17-year-old girl who loses her parents in a hit-and-run accident, and she survives this accident, and she tries to cope with the horrible loss by playing the piano, especially the piano music of Rachmaninoff. So I really wanted to make a social relevant movie, because the movie talks about the grief of youngsters who are confronted with trauma at a very young age, and how they have to overcome this drama. And of course, it's totally different when you are a young person, because it's they don't know yet maybe how to cope with this very intense emotions, because they're searching for their own personality at that age, and who they are and what they want to become and which direction they want to go. So it's totally different when this kind of dramas happen to youngsters than when it happens to an adult person. So that's why I thought it was very interesting to pick this kind of theme. But at the same time, it's also a movie about the hit and run accidents, because in Belgium actually there are a lot of hit and run accidents, and often involved with alcohol. And I wanted to tell the story too of a perpetrator, and look at the story in a more psychological way to try to understand why people do these kind of things, why they decide to cause an accident and then run off. So I see it more as a filmmaker. I make this movie because I'm interested in the characters, not because I want to judge them, but I try to find to look for the human aspect of my characters. Yeah.
I believe that КЛЕО is a really relative film also in Bulgaria, because we have one of the highest death tolls related to traffic accidents, hit and run accidents in Europe. It's very important to be seen also here in Bulgaria for this reason. There are so many people that actually cope and have to relate with stories similar to this one. Now, speaking of young people, do you believe that young people have a secure place nowadays where they can actually find support? Because given the situation in Europe and the US right now, we see so many angry young people trying to fight injustice, social injustice in so many ways. Where do you think are the supports for young people nowadays, at least in Europe? What can they actually hold on to? What can they rely on? Can they?
Yeah, it's a good question. Of course, with everything that is happening right now, also in Belgium, there are a lot of protests going on about the Black Lives Matter amongst them, and most of them are young people. And I think what is very important to know is that there is a gap in the generations, between generations. And I think it's also reflected in my movie that a lot of times parents don't have a clue actually what their youngsters are doing. And I think that's maybe where the rage comes from, that you can have a whole generation who feels disappointed because they are very worried about the future, and they see that the fear that they have and the things they worry about are not really reflected in politics or in society. And when they don't feel that they're heard, then they will make this kind of protests to look for change. And that is a topic that really interests me, because, for example, in my movie, КЛЕО, she loses her parents, and then she has to end up with her grandmother, who is like 70 years old and doesn't have a clue what these youngsters are about. But this is a situation that happens a lot also in Europe, when parents are working all the time, full time. They don't have a lot of time to invest with their children, and then the children are a little bit lost, or they have to hang on with the grandparents who take care of them. And that's when you see these kind of generation conflicts that happen. And at the same time, it's so important to answer your question. I think that family is the most important for a youngster, that he or she can feel secure and understood. And that's the base, I think, family.
Well, I believe this is a great sum up. I think that КЛЕО is a film that needs to be seen by entire families. So take the opportunity to see it both live at Cinema House and online. Really interesting first feature film by young director Ева Коолс. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning to have a cup of coffee and talk about the film. You're more than welcome anytime at Sofia, of course, and everyone is welcome to see КЛЕО. КЛЕО is online and at Cinema House. Come and see it, not only because it's good, but also because it's important.